Good day everyone, I'm John Carl Fernando and I'm going to discuss the topic, Does Gender Matter? So let's start from the title. From the title itself, we can get a good grasp kung ano ang context nito. Dito sa commentary ng Does Gender Matter, pinapakita lang dito kung gaano nga ba nakakaapekto ang gender in terms of opportunities, treatment, and expectations sa society. Dito sa commentary ay hindi lang particularly na nakatuon sa field of sciences, kundi naiuugnay din ito sa other fields like field of engineering, academe, and even sports. So before we start, let me introduce the topic which is aligned sa parts of the commentary of Ben Barres. First, who is Ben Barres? So dito, mayroon lang kaunting info or background about sa life niya at kung ano nga ba ang naging dahilan kung bakit niya isinulat ang komentaryong Does Gender Matter? Second, hypothesis testing. So dito didiscuss lamang kung ano nga ba ang mga hypothesis o particular yung mga pananaw o palagay na dahilan ng mga high-profile academicians kung bakit nga ba mabagal ang pag-unlad o pag-advance ng mga kababaihan kumpara sa mga kalalakihan in the field of sciences. Aside from that, i-mention din ang ilan sa mga high-profile academicians na nagbigay ng kanilang hypothesis regarding sa kung bakit napag-iiwanan o underrepresented ang mga kababaihan sa larangan ng siyensya. So dito mayroon silang punto na halos iisang ini-imply in which according to Barres ay nagpapakita ng bias at ito ay tatalakay natin further in our discussion. Dito naman sa third to fifth, from the sums don't add up to taboo or untrue, these are the categories of the commentary that specifically focus on refuting or the rebuttal argument ni Ben Barres regarding sa mga hypothesis ng other high-profile academicians. So dito included ang mga relevant studies about sa issues and even personal anecdotes of Ben Barres as he is considerable to be a primary source given that he first went through being a woman before transitioning to be a man. Next is the take action, speak out, and confidence booster. So this part naman summarizes the main points of Barres regarding what he gave in response to the problems faced by general, not just women but even minorities. So dito is kumbaga mga recommendations on how to address these kind of problems, which is of course based on his observation, personal experiences, and supporting studies. Now let's move to the overview. What is the commentary about? The commentary simply revolves around Ben Barres' claims along with the relevant studies cited to support it, and his personal experiences as he aims to dispute the hypothesis of the other high-profile academicians with regards to why women are not advancing much in the field of sciences and why they are underrepresented in this field. Moreover, nag-aim din ito to explain bakit nga ba mali ang mga hypothesis na pinopose ng ibang academicians. So basically, this commentary composed of two sides, the side of Barres and the side of the high-profile academicians who are all men. Next, who is Ben Barres? Ben Barres, born on September 13, 1954, transitioned in 1997. So, gaya nga nasabi ko kanina, Ben Barres is a woman first before becoming a man because he is a transgendered man, particularly a transsexual. So, recap lang, magkaiba ang transsexual sa transgender. As tackled before, a transsexual can be considered a transgender but a transgender is not considered a transsexual kasi nga napakalawak ng pagiging isang transgender. It encompasses diverse range of genders and an umbrella term for various genders. Meanwhile, transsexual naman is quite specific sa mga taong nag-change ng sex through operations and such. Returning to the topic, his name before was Barbara Barres, is female at birth, so dahil nga nagkaroon ng conflict sa kanyang gender identity and sex at birth, he decided to transition by undergoing significant surgeries and testosterone therapy to become a man. Ben Barres is a distinguished neuroscientist and professor. So ayun nga, Ben Barres was a distinguished neuroscientist and professor at Stanford University. He's not only known for his groundbreaking work in understanding the role of glial cells in the brain but also for his advocacy for gender equality in science. Author of the commentary Does Gender Matter died on December 27, 2017. So dahil na he is an advocate of gender equality, he writes his commentary para maging eye-opener sa mga tao na nagpapakita ng biases at unequal treatment pagdating sa mga babae. Aside from that, basically this serves to be a call for an action to address yung mga problemang kinakaharap ng mga babae. Moreover, ayon pa sa kanya kung saan explicit na binanggit niya sa kanyang commentary that aside from being personal ng kanyang reason in writing his commentary, it is also for female students to feel that they will have equal opportunity in their scientific careers. Now, let's move on to hypothesis testing. So ngayon, alamin na natin kung ano nga ba ang sinasabi ng mga academicians sa kanilang hypothesis at kung sino-sino nga ba ang mga academicians sa tinutukoy dito. First, Larry Summers. Gaya ni Summers, Steven Pinkerton, who's a professor also in Harvard, state a similar argument in a non-league debate. So the main point kasi ni Summers is that imbis na sabihin discrimination ang dahilan kung bakit mababa ang advancement ng mga babae, ang dapat nasisihin ay ang kanilang innate aptitude. So, ano nga bang innate aptitude? Ang innate aptitude ay tumutukoy lamang sa inherent or likas na kapasidad na tinataglay ng isang tao. Meaning, maaaring ito ay sa cognitive thinking, talent, or skill capacity. And from the word innate, ibig sabihin ay simula nang ipinanganak pa lamang ang isang tao ay taglay na ito. Next is, Summers talk about more on different availability of aptitude at the high end, which suggested that men are overrepresented at high extremes of the aptitude distribution. Meaning to say is that men are more likely to have extremely high abilities in areas like mathematics and science. And because of this, mas maraming lalaki ang nag-occupy na top roles in science and math fields. Habang fewer women naman kasi they are on average lang. Meanwhile, Lawrence talks about on average aptitude differing. Meaning, on average men and women might have different levels of ability in certain domains. For example, some argue that men may naturally perform better in science and mathematical tasks, while women may have excel in verbal tasks. Third, Peter Lawrence states that even in a utopian world, women would still be underrepresented in science because they are innately different from men. So, dito kay Lawrence, sinutukoy rin na ang magiging basis ay ang mga lalaki because his argument of Lawrence clearly implies that less success of women in science is due to biological sex difference. Kumbaga, just because women are born differently than men, so, may dominated kasi sa iba't ibang fields before, that's why I think that they act superior thinking that they should be the standard. Fourth, Lawrence draws from the work of Simon Baron Cohen, meaning Lawrence used the findings of Cohen in relation to his, particularly to support his hypothesis. Sabi kasi ni Cohen na average ng mga lalaki daw ay naturally inclined to systematize, to analyze, and to be more forgetful of others. On the other hand, women are more on being naturally empathetic, communicative, and caring to others. However, he argues that science is based on facts, more on logical thinking, systematic reasoning, and analysis, and need ng focus should not be affected by emotions or other external factors. Therefore, he also argues that men are innately better equipped para makipag-compete in the vicious struggle to survive in the science. Fifth, Harvey Mansfield state in his new book that women don't like to compete, are risk-adverse, less abstract, and too emotional. So, in addition kay Lawrence, sinabing women are empathetic while men are systematic, dagdag ni Mansfield na ang mga women daw ay hindi mahilig makipag-compete. Meaning, parang umiiwas sila sa panganib o walang lakas na loob na mag-take ng risk. Unlike sa mga lalaki na basta may probability or chance, they will take a risk. And sabi dyan, less abstract meaning more on being practical or in application, while men are in theoretical and technical thinking. And lastly, women are too emotional, meaning they are more on expressing emotions or ng kanilang saloobin rather than the skills needed in science. Sixth, Stephen Jay Gould hypothesis. Women are not advancing because of discrimination. So, ayon naman kay Ben Barres, existing or available scientific data of Lawrence, Summer, and Mansfield do not provide credible support for their hypothesis, but instead support an alternative one, that women are not advancing because of discrimination, named Stephen Jay Gould hypothesis. Seventh, treatment of individuals should be based on merit rather than on race, gender, or religious stereotypes. Sabi kasi ni Barres, treatment of individuals should be based on merit. Merit meaning yung skills, abilities, and qualification is ang individual. Instead of race, gender, or religious stereotypes. Kasi nga, if we are to base with the race, gender, or religious stereotypes, nagkakaroon ng unequal treatment at opportunities, or generally, the inequalities. Next is the sums don't add up. Number one, there is a powerful social factors that discourage women from studying math and science from a very young age. Despite that, sabi niyan ba sa pinapakita statistics cited by Barres, in the math test scores for ages 4 to 18, there is a little to distinguish between boys and girls throughout school. So halos walang difference sa math test scores ng mga babae at lalaki. At bukod pa dyan, sinasabing 1/3 or 33% pa sa mga nanalo sa elite put ng math competition ay babae. Sa kabila ng pag-restrict sa kanila na mag-aral at a very young age ng math and science. Number 2, the societal assumption that women are innately less able than men. So, according to Barres, kung hindi ang intellectual abilities ang dahilan ng mabagal na paunlad ng mga babae sa science fields, he believes that it is due to the societal assumption that women are innately less able than men. Base sa sarili niyang experience as a young woman back then, nung siya ay nag-aaral pa sa Massachusetts Institute of Technology bilang isang undergrad student, he was invalidated by his professor when he's the only one able to answer a complex math problem. He was told that he probably just asked his boyfriend to do it for him. Number 3, the bar is unconsciously raised so high for women and minority candidates that few emerge as winners. So ayon sa pag-aaral na nakalap ni Barres, sinasabing para maituring na kasing competent ng lalaki ang babae, she must be at least 2.5 times na mas productive kumpara sa lalaki. So dito pa lang makikita na natin na ang mga actions na ito ay posible na isa sa mga dahilan kung bakit mas kakaunti at higit na mabagal ang pag-unlad ng mga babae sa mga scientific careers. Next, in denial. Very few women or men are willing to admit that discrimination is a serious problem in science. This statement reflects the complex social and psychological factors influencing how women perceive and respond to gender discrimination in professional settings. For men, given that they are the one imposing discriminatory acts, it's given that they won't admit it. But for women, not admitting or recognizing discrimination as a serious problem, keeping silent and rejecting it, why? There must be some reason behind this. Kung bakit ganyan ang kanilang attitude towards it. According to Barnes' cited study from Virginia Ballian, she suggested that it may be just we all have a strong desire to believe that the world is fair, which is, in reality, it is not. So when it comes to bias, it seems that the desire to believe in a meritocracy is so powerful that even a person has experienced enough career harm because of biases, they still do not believe it exists. Another one that is pointed is the denial of personal disadvantage. Denial basically means to reject or not accept. So dahil dinedeny ng mga women na mayroon silang personal disadvantage, they are also denying discrimination because of the judgment they may experience. Because many argues that women are very emotional. So to not be seen as complainers, therefore, the silence serve as their survival strategy in our society, where speaking out could lead to negative repercussions. Moreover, as a consequence of not accepting the discrimination existing, led to persist or even exacerbate inequality in opportunities and treatment while leading women to normalize perceiving their struggles to personal failings or other external factors rather than discrimination. With regards naman to comparing their advancement with men, but instead with other women, this implies that this led them to continuously be unaware of the reason why they are not advancing as much as men. Women are comparing themselves with fellow women, in turn, they become unknowingly against each other. To the point that rather than helping each other, there's a competition between them because they believe that the fewer women are successful, one's success seems even greater. According to Barres himself, he also possessed denial of personal disadvantage before. It was just until a prestigious event named the Pioneer Award of the National Institute of Health opened his eyes to the biases existing in academia. It was because, starting from the nomination process, there is a clear disadvantage na on women because 60 out of 64 judges are men and therefore all hailed winner are men. The comments of Summer, Mansfield, Pinker, and Lawrence about men's lesser innate abilities are all wrongful and personal attacks on my character and capabilities. Of course, given that they're arguing women are innately lower in aptitude, it implies that men are always better. It's like a disrespect on Barre's side being a prominent scientist and a professor. Like his capabilities are being limited or restricted. Because just the word innately less able, para kinakahon mo na ang buong pagkatao at kakayahan ng isang tao. Therefore, it's wrong as it's just a baseless accusation saying that women were always inferior, hindi na sa field of science, kundi pati pa sa ibang mga larangan. Mansfield and others claim that women are more emotional than men. So, sabi kanina, one of the argument ni Larry Summers, supported by Baron Cohen, is that women are more on being empathetic and communicative, meaning they are more of understanding and expressing emotions, while men are commonly inclined to systematize, meaning to be organized in things. There's nothing wrong with being emotional. Besides, emotions are valid and natural. It is a response to something. But from Mansfield view, he uses the term emotional quite in a limiting way. As stated in the previous slide, women are too emotional na parang women are limited to emotional related things and cannot function or perform beyond that. But according to Barres, there is no such evidence to support women being emotional than men. On the contrary, it is men who commit the most violent crimes out of anger.
For instance, men committed 25 times more murder than women.
Now let's move on to taboo or untrue. Number one, there is no scientific support either for the contention that women are innately less competitive. So, di ba sabi kanina ni Mansfield in his hypothesis, he adds that other thing that contributes why women not advancing much in science is that because women don't like to compete. In response, according to Ben Barres, nilinaw niya na walang scientific basis ang paniniwala na ang mga babae ay likas na hindi competitive compared to men. Dahil for him, ang tunay na nagpapatatag sa mga scientists upang wag sumuko sa scientific careers is their desire to learn more or matuto and to create, to innovate, hindi ang simpleng pagiging competitive lamang. Number two, many girls are discouraged from sports for fear of being labeled tomboys. So dito naman, nirelate naman ang gender stereotypes of women in sports as the reason that affects women's competitive nature. Pinalaki ni Barres na ang mga gender stereotypes ay madalas nagpapahinto sa pag-unlad ng mga babae sa ilang larangan kasama ng sports. So ini-imply lamang dito that women's competitiveness ay may iba't ibang factors na nakaka-affect. One thing is the gender construct like who should play sports. Diba, as we all know, before men are the only ones who are prepared to engage in sports. Meron pang construct that saying men are natural athletes. So kapag ang babae masyadong active or inclined sa mga sports, they are labeled bilang tomboy because they possess masculinity. With this, ito ay nagiging sanhi para ma-discourage ang mga babae sa pagsali sa mga sports o iba pang mga competitive na activities. Number 3, the gender gap in competitiveness in financial tournaments was due to differences in self-confidence rather than ability. Another one that Barrett cites to argue is this. According to a study in 2002, they found out that there's a gender gap in competitiveness in financial tournaments, but it's not because of their difference in abilities, but the difference in self-confidence. So with these findings, Barrett argues that just like how self-confidence led women to not compete or leave sports, it could also be the reason for women to leave engineering and science, leading to answer the question of why women are underrepresented in the field of science. Number 4, when women are repeatedly told they are less good, their self-confidence falls and their ambitions dim. In addition, other arguments of Barres is that because of the societal expectations or norms that women are less good, this causes women's self-confidence to be excessively low and their dreams to perish. Kaya nga, according to Balian, the researcher who is often cited by Barres in this commentary, by simply raising expectations to women in science, may be the most important factor in helping them rise or even make it to the top in various fields. Number 5, in a culture where women's abilities are not respected, women cannot effectively learn, advance, lead, or participate in a society in a fulfilling way. Now let's move on to the last part of the commentary. Take action. This simply means to call for an action. Although I have argued that the Larry Summers hypothesis is incorrect and harmful, the academic community is one of the most tolerant around. So ang sinasabi lang dito, although Summers and others hypothesis that women's not advancing in science is due to difference in innate aptitude, we can't deny that one of the major problem is also due to the tolerance of our society. How the biases and discrimination are not considered harmful and not taken seriously by many. Moreover, those hypotheses of other academicians is just a testament or proof of the existing discrimination. It just highlights the biases are continuously patronized within the minds of the people. Therefore, here are the recommendations of Barres calling for actions to address these biases and discrimination in various fields. First, enhance leadership diversity in academic and scientific institutions. So, diversity meaning hindi lang lalaki, gaya ng kanina that I mentioned sa sinalihang contents ni Bares, most judge are men. Therefore, we can deny that there's a bias happen. Relating this to leadership in science, if leadership are diverse, mayroong representative all genders. Mayroong equal opportunities. Mas malawak ang pag-intindi sa bawat isa. So, it's not just simply giving women leadership to lessen hostility on them in the working environment, but also for other purposes like for Asians, LGBTs, and the most minority groups to have opportunity to lead and be heard given that they have potential and capabilities too. Second, there is much talk about equal opportunity, but in practice, serious attention still needs to be directed at how to run fair job searches. So of course, promoting diversity is not enough when it comes to equal opportunities, especially in job recruitment. So Bara suggested that aside from the need for highly diverse search committees in job searches, there should also be support and enough understanding with every faculties. For instance, in promotion processes, it should be based on the quality of papers published, not the quantity. Another one is that there should be institutional support for balancing career and family responsibilities of women, like giving financial help for their child to daycare, so that there will be an equal competition and opportunities for all. Third, there should be less silence in the face of discrimination. This means that the responsibility to speak out lies not only with our leaders, but with everyone. Whenever we witness or experience violence, discrimination, or any form of harassment, we should not be afraid or hesitant to report it to the authorities, as it's our duty to do it, to help the woman voice out, to support others. Besides, it only takes a minimal effort for us to do so. Fourth, enhance fairness in competitive selection process. So, in line with Barra's experiences, he therefore conclude that to enhance fairness of a competition selection process, just like the NIH Pioneer Award, a change should be made. Even by simply changing the selection procedure to self-nomination and a diverse selection committee instead of a majority of men, we can ensure that the number of women and minority winners could went up from zero. And lastly, confidence booster. Confidence booster because this is focused on the ways how to boost confidence. We can teach young scientists to survive in a prejudiced world. Diba, as mentioned earlier, self-confidence, which is an important aspect of driving women's competitive nature, is greatly affected by societal expectations. Therefore, according to Bares, the lower expectations coming from friends, family, and especially the teachers, led students to do less well. Therefore, in order to preserve this confidence that affects a person's full performance and capabilities, teachers are suggested to provide a word of encouragement to every student regardless of sex, as even these simple actions can bring enormous effects. Next is skill development. So, dapat daw ito yung students in presentation skills, like for instance, asking questions, to connect with the listeners, and even networking and leadership, because these are the important skills needed to survive and advance in academia. Finally, proactive mentoring. Also, sabi ni Bares, senior faculty should actively seek out and support talented young students to help them harness and nurture their talents even more in whatever way possible with their careers.
Next, in this part, the conclusion, you may just kindly read it. So these are all for my report. Thank you for listening.